Ryan here, setpacetriathlon.com, getting settled in to talk to you about 70.3 and for 2021 full Ironman Waco run course. Talked about the swim, we talked about the bike. We're going to talk later about weather and transition and spectator info and event guide and all kinds of other stuff. But I wanted to talk about the run course specifically today, just to get you ready for what you're going to see on race day. Now, if you're doing the race in 2021, the 70.3, as you know, they're offering a full the day before. So the full, I'm kind of going to cover both because some of the course overlaps. So it'll be really um, informational for the people doing the full as well as the 70.3. So it's kind of a 2-for-1. So 70.3 Waco, we'll kind of hit that one first. And it's coming up. I'm doing this recording on October 18th, so it's coming up this weekend. So hopefully you're getting ready. You're tapered up. There's nothing you can really do at this point as far as training and fitness wise, other than just rest up and be ready for the race. But moving on and looking at, like I said, I've already talked about the swim, talked about the bike. Let's talk about the run. And I've got another thing pulled up here on the side. I can see if you're doing comments or anything like that. You got any questions? You want to pick my brain or anything? Later on, I'm going to post. I have a podcast, so pay attention to that in the groups. I want to put a podcast of where I talked to an athlete who did the 70.3 in 2019. He had a pretty good race out there. So I want to post that as well, and I'll post that and make it available for you guys to listen to, so you can get some information listening there too. But if you want to replay this, I want to put it on YouTube. It'll be on Facebook. I'll leave it there so you can replay it while you're traveling and watch it all. Sometimes my videos are 20 minutes, sometimes they're 10 minutes, so it just depends. Some information has more, or some courses need more information than others. But I digress. We're going to jump in 70.3 Waco, and I'm just going to the main website. I always like to start off with Ironman's course maps. I pull up the PDF just because this is going to be as accurate as it gets as far as what the course is going to look like. I'll pull it up so you can see it on the screen there. So as you can see, you're just hanging out around the Brazos River. Nothing too crazy. You're going through Cameron Park, and then you're ending up near University Parks Drive here. That's close where the finish line is. So it's really, it's a two-loop course, and I won't say it's straightforward and simple, but usually Ironman 99% of the time does a great job marking the course and stuff. So you're going to want to really pay attention to the markings, especially when you're doing two loops out there. You want to make sure all this little spaghetti route here that you're getting all of it, because they have timing mats everywhere. If you miss one of the timing mats, you could risk disqualification, give you a DNF. You might still finish the race and get a medal and that type of thing, but you may not show up in the search results. So just be aware of that. Make sure that you're out there and you're paying attention when you're on the run course and you're hitting the right turns and everything. They should have volunteers at the corners. They should have markings everywhere. They've been pretty good as far as the races I've done. I've done 70.3 Des Moines, Ironman Tulsa, 70.3 Memphis, and they've all been pretty good about marking the course. Make sure you stay on course. Full turn-by-turn directions are on Ironman's description of the run course. So you can download that or print it off. It's in the athlete guide as well. You can take that with you if you want to go as far as to maybe, take a bike and ride the course and just find out where everything's at. But there's some that's in the parks and on trail systems and stuff. So it might be kind of difficult at times, especially when you're at MLK Junior Boulevard. That's a pretty big thoroughfare. I'll show you. I'll also go through Google Maps. So if you pull it up, you're going to be running on this road. So I would just be careful if you're going to go out and check it out beforehand. You don't want to go out there and necessarily get in, have an issue with traffic or anything like that. So maybe you drive this part and kind of check it out to see what it looks like in person. And a gain this is the 70.3, a gain of 471 feet. So that's really not bad. The real kicker is there's going to be a nice climb once you get in that park around mile 1.5 or so. So when you're on the course and you hit the transition, you come out and there's going to be a nice little climb. I believe it is when, again, I'll post a podcast. My athlete kind of described it really well. You just want to pay attention here. If you got a nice little steep climb coming in there, that's going to be, I think, for the 70.3, the major issue is just making sure that you get over that first climb and you're like, feeling good and sailing into it. And then mile 8, and that's where the race kind of sets in. you hit that hill one more time, you don't want it to break you. You want to be able to survive the first hill and then have enough to get through that second hill. And then once you get over that hill, it's a pretty smooth straight into the finish line, a nice downhill. So that would be my recommendation. When you come off the bike, you're going to be jazzed up. I would really avoid, the first 3 miles going, really conservative, really pacing yourself, really keeping the energy under check and under control, focusing on hydration, nutrition. If you look at the weather, look at weather.com real quick. I believe I have had Waco here a few times in my last searches. Nothing like waiting for the internet and paint to dry. So luckily we are about a week out on talk about weather. So hopefully you guys are all ready. But hopefully you've been paying attention. The 23rd, 24th, that is race weekend. Sunny on Saturday, 85 degrees for your full. And for the half people, it is partly cloudy and 85 degrees. So it's going to be warm. Winds 12 to 15 miles an hour. A minor, minuscule chance of rain. And that's even gone down from this morning. It was around 25% on Sunday. So just be aware. There could be some rain out there. For the run, that's really not a problem. For the run, you actually, to cool it off, it helps to have clouds and rain. So just be ready for that. You may get sprinkles or something like that, or it may change. Just pay attention to the weather as you're running into it. Again, we'll go for weather. But again, 85 degrees, especially with this race, the 70.3, starting at noon. So you're going to be starting in the warmer part of the day. So just be ready for that. I think it'll be kind of nice to get the warmest part of the day while you're probably kind of mostly out on the bike. When you hit the run, it should start getting cooler. The sun should start setting. So I think that's going to be a good opportunity to get cool and to not overheat. But I think for that run, you want to make sure sunscreen. I take some sunglasses. You're going to be in the brightest part of the day. And it's just partly cloudy. You'll still get some sun. When you're looking at Google Maps, so if we look at the course, kind of see where you're at. You're in Cameron Park up down here to the suspension bridge. So just give you a good idea where you're at. So when you're looking here, you got Cameron Park going around here. So when you're in the park, there's some trees, there's some cover. You should get some opportunity to maybe get some shade or something like that. But if the wind's picking up, there'll be a nice little breeze or something like that. But when you're over here, when you check out the course, you're on MLK Junior Boulevard. You're pretty much kind of wide open to the elements. So just be ready for that. Be ready for the situations, especially in this back hill on North University Parks Drive. You might be on this trail system, you might be on the road. So just be aware that there's not much tree coverage there. So I think there's going to be opportunity that you're going to be in full sun, and you don't really want to get sunburned out there. It's not really fun suffering through 70.3 at the end. You're at the last 5-6 miles of that race, and then you're sunburnt on top of that because you're going to be out there. For 2021, they're starting at noon because you're the day after a full. So you're going to be out there in the sun the entire race. So sunscreen is going to be your friend, especially on the run. Bring your own. Make sure you're self-supported. With the pandemic and restrictions changing, seems like every day still. There might be a situation where maybe they have sunscreen and they let you do it yourself, or maybe they have people put sunscreen on you, maybe they don't. Just be ready. Just be as self-sufficient as possible, especially for 70.3. You can bring your stuff into transition, set up your bags, have everything with you. So it's not like a full where you have your transition bags and once you hand them off, they're gone. But you can have access to it when you're in transition. So I think just be ready. I think it'll be nice when you're out in the open, especially if you look at the weather. On that Sunday, 50 miles per hour, especially if it's partly cloudy and there's a little bit of rain. I think you have an opportunity to be out here and hopefully get a nice breeze, because if there's no breeze and it's full sun, especially full Ironman people, it's going to be a little bit difficult out there. I think you're going to get baked, especially on this little part right here. You're going to be in full sun. So just be ready for that. Have a cooling strategy. Just be prepared. If it does, still forecasted to reach 85 degrees, which is pretty warm, and you're in the south, it's going to be pretty humid. So just make sure you're ready for that when you're going through. Um, like I said, I mean, for the half, the run isn't that difficult. There's some little hills, some little ups and downs here and there. There's just one big climb coming out. Like I said, kind of around mile 1.5 to 2. You got a little bit of a climb coming out, and you're going to have to hit it on the second loop. So keep in mind that this is a 2-loop course. So don't go out there and blow your wad on that first loop and then realize, oh man, I hit the turnaround. I got to do another loop. So just make sure that you're also following the maps and everything. So when you're hitting your turnarounds and you're doing your second loops, like I said, I mean, there is a lot of out and backs. There's a lot of loops in here. So just make sure that you're paying attention to where you need to go. I'm going to pull up the full because I'm going to look at that. So they've got a little bit more going on here for this little loop situation, but notice that they've added a little bit more across the river. So for the half, usually they zoom in on these little areas, but right now I'm not seeing it. So, like I said, just make sure when you're running through, don't be in a huge hurry. Make sure you go through, you're checking where the turns are, and you make sure you're staying on course. Like I said, they're going to have timing mats. So I think that's going to be the biggest thing is just making sure that you're staying on course. For these straightaways, shouldn't be a problem. But when you get back in here and you're doing these loops, you're doing these little doodads and turnarounds and jogs and all kinds of other weird little things going on here. I think that's going to be the biggest key is making sure that you stay on the course and hit all the timing mats because you do not want a DNF on your race results. And you don't want to come across the finish line being like, oh, wow, I just PR'd that 13.1 miles in an hour and 13 minutes. And you look at your watch, it's like, oh, I've only done 11 miles instead of 13.1. So last thing you want to do is get through and realize that you shorted the course because you can't go back and rerun it. And then, I mean, you could, but who wants to run 26.2 miles when you don't have to if you're doing half? But overall, like I said, 471 feet of gain over 13.1 miles is not a deal breaker by any means. I think, like I said, the main points are going to be make sure you're prepared for sun, make sure you're prepared for heat. Hopefully, you set yourself up well on the bike for nutrition and hydration. Because once you get there in the run and you're stretching your body, it's going to be more difficult for your stomach to process foods and water. Just make sure you have a good cooling strategy, whether it be ice in your hat, bringing a wash rag and dunking it in ice water that they have, or, cups of ice water and putting in like Ironman Chattanooga in 2019. They had socks they filled with ice. So I grabbed one and every aid station I just filled with more ice. So maybe that's a strategy. So develop your strategies now. Plan on a warm race day. It's better to be cooler than overheated. So if you get to a point, maybe you do the cooling sleeves, you put ice on those, maybe put ice down your neck or something like that. Whatever your strategy is, make sure you've got that ready for race day because I think it's going to be warm. It's going to be sunny. There could be a breeze, but I would not count on it. There could be some clouds, but I'm not going to count on that much. Back here, you should have a little bit of shade in the park area, but like I said, you look at Google Maps, once you cross the river, I don't think you're going to have much shade at all. Maybe when you get back into this little park area here, but I mean, just look at Google Maps, I don't see that many trees. So once you get back in there, it's going to be slim pickings as far as trees go. So just make sure you're ready for that. Full sun, hot, could be humid. First little climb, and then save enough for that second climb, and then you get to the finish line. So that's kind of the like I said, I'm going to combine the 70.3 and the full Waco Ironman into this video. So this is kind of my take on the half. When you go to the full, download the course map. So notice the big difference is they got this little leg that kind of goes across the river. So if you're looking at your Google Maps, you're across the river from Cameron Park, but you're still on MLK Boulevard. So this, looking to see, yes, so they've got you on this little trail. So this is kind of nice because it is lined with trees. So there is the opportunity on this back half. You're going to get hopefully a little bit of shade. You full people, it's a standard day. You're starting first thing in the morning. So when you end up on the run course, depending on where that sun's at during the day, you might get shade one side or the other. But, it's looking like more opportunities not to get some shade. These look like pretty tall grown trees. So over here in Cameron Park and over here across the river, should have ample opportunity for getting some shade. But notice, this is 3 loops of the run course. So they've extended this a little bit, and you have to do 3 times. But notice this spaghetti loop here. So you notice you're coming in, you're going out, you're doing loops, you're coming out, you're going back across, you're doing all these things. So make sure that you're check out the map, make sure you know where you're going and what loop you're on. The markings for I've done when they moved Ironman Florida to Haines City. It was 3 loop run course, and you run through the transition area near the transition area like 3 times. So they're very good about. They had like a big archway. They had signs that says make sure you first, second, and third loop you're in here. The finish line's this way. That type of thing. So make sure that you're not shorting the course. Like I just talked about with 70.3 people, if you miss this leg, I mean, that's going to be a substantial portion of the race course. So the last thing you want to do when you get to the finish line is realize that you shorted the course, or especially if you're over here and you're already running through and you're like, man, I'm not coming up with 26.2 miles. I'm like 4 or 5 miles short. The last thing you want to do is get to the end of an Ironman race and realize you're short on the run. I've had people do that. Ironman Lake Tahoe 2013, there was this little loop that goes through the little parking lot. A gal came through and she's like, I didn't realize we are supposed to hit this on the first loop, and she shorted the course. So hopefully she got her time back. I don't know how she did, but anyway, just saying, don't miss the turns. Make sure you pay attention to this little spaghetti loop area. Go through and really check out the arrows. I'm not going to go through and make any assumptions necessarily. It looks like you come through, go straight through, do your little loops, and then come back. And coming through and doing this little doodad, coming through again and hitting the little course. And yeah, so it looks like you go through, do this loop, cross back over, do this loop, come back over, run around a little bit, and then cross back over and do this loop, and then come back over. So like I said, I would definitely go through and make sure, especially the first time doing the loop, that you're really paying attention to the signs. And the same kind of goes for my full people. You're on Saturday, the 23rd, 85 degrees, sunny, very low chance of rain. Looks a little bit breezy. It's gonna be warm. It's gonna be sunny. So make sure you're prepared for weather or to cool yourself down in the hot weather. So whether it be ice, make sure you got sunscreen. Make sure you have a good cooling strategy. Make sure that you hydrated well on that bike, because it's really gonna show through on this run. I think this run is gonna be, if you look at the elevation gain of, you've got that little hill a couple of times, a nice downhill to follow it. So that's really your main elevation gain for the 3 loops. 1,200 feet of gain over 26.2 miles is not insane per se. It's not small and minuscule. You still got to pay attention to it. But so I would definitely hold a little bit back for each one of these times to do this hill, because you want to get that last one and just be totally out of gas. So make sure you carry enough in there, because there's, once you get done with that third hill, you still got 4.2 miles left. If you still got energy, spew it out on those last 4 miles. But I'm pretty much going to guess most of us get that by that last hill. Most of us are not going to have as much energy as we want at that point, and we'll be happy to take anything we can get past that hill. So make sure that you're pacing yourself well. I think this is going to be a challenging course. Not only is there some logistics involved in making sure that you hit all the loops, all the timing mats. Like I said, it's going to be sunny. And it's going to be warm, if not borderline hot, especially, October 24th and 23rd. This late in the year, I mean, that's pretty warm. I'll do a separate weather video, and we'll kind of look at past historical information. But I like to do this, especially if the race is a week out. But this run course, like I said, I would stop where the aid stations are at and make sure that you're prepared. If you're taking a sock and filling with ice aid station, if you're putting ice in your hat between aid stations, are you going to take a visor? Are you going to take a hat, a trucker hat? What are you going to do? Are you going to use sleeves, put ice down the sleeves or something like that? Ice in your hands to keep them cold. When I've had groin cramps, I've used ice in cups and put them in my shorts, just to keep that area kind of cool down and to get past the cramps and that type of thing. So, lubrication when you get into T2, make sure you have plenty of lubrication in your socks. Because if you're pouring a lot of water on yourself and you're sweating a lot, your socks can be wet. There's going to be a lot of friction in your shoes. The last thing you want is big old blisters to deal with. So Aquaphor and T2. lube up those socks, lube up the sensitive areas in T2. Um, Typically, they have the stuff on the course, but for pandemic issues, I'm not sure if they're going to have things like Aquaphor and um, any kind of butt paste or anything like that on the course. Maybe put that in special needs too. So when you get the special needs, you have an option too. When you're at 13.1 miles, let's look at that. Red Bull Station, water, finish line, transition area, loop to finish. Red Bull. Yeah, I'm not seeing. They did not. Does not look like they marked where your special needs drop. Typically, special needs is going to be the halfway point of run, so around 13-ish miles. But notice on this one with the 3 loops, so sometimes you have options. You can pick it up early, pick it up in the middle, or you can pick it up at the end. So it just kind of depends where you're at in your race. If you think you're good to go between each, but if you get there in that first loop, you forgot lubrication, you forgot this, that, and the other, it may be worth stopping and getting hooked up there. But if you can make it through, if they got supplies at 8 stations, maybe save it to the last loop. If you really need it, then you can pull it in and use all the stuff at your special needs bag drop. But kind of looking over, thinking of anything else, highlights. I don't see any comments or questions like that. But again, I think it's pretty technical as far as especially this little loop, especially for full. For the half, this little area is going to have some difficulties too. So just make sure that you pay attention to signage. If you have any questions, ask a volunteer where you should go. More than likely, most of us are not going to be the first ones through this place. So make sure that you're catching all the timing mats, because that's going to be key too, to make sure you don't get a big old fat DNF, even though you do finish the course if you miss a timing mat or something crazy. Prepare for sun, prepare for heat. I think it's going to be pretty warm out there. It's going to be pretty sunny. So this is going to be an interesting, especially when you cross a river over here, especially when you're in this little area right here. Just look at a Google Maps. There is not much as far as coverage goes of shade. So you're going to be out there and you're going to be fully exposed on the section. So just be ready for that. I think this is, unfortunately, this time of year, you're usually looking for cooler temperatures than this, but 85, I think it's going to be interesting because you look at the weather, a low of 66. So in the mornings, it's going to be, pretty nice. But once you start getting into the race, it's going to be pretty warm. Hydrate well, sunscreen, get some sun protection, have a good cooling strategy for your race, because you want to get out there and totally melt down, especially, this time of year, especially like here in Kansas City, we're getting cooler during the day. The highs are in the 70s, so you're probably losing a little bit of the acclimation, especially as we taper and stuff. The acclimation to heat, to humidity, and that type of thing. So just make sure that you're ready for that. Other than that, I'd bring something to like a headlamp or something to maybe put in your special needs bag. And remember, your special needs bag, if you don't get it, the stuff out of there, you don't get it back. So if you've got a $high headlamp that you put in there, you're taking a chance of not getting it back. So I would definitely find a cheapy headlamp, maybe, if you think you're going to be out there past dark, because I'm going to venture a guess that most of these places are not going to be too well lit. Sidewalks and paths, especially over here, when you get to the park area, you don't want to get back in there and, especially like I said, in parks and wooded areas and stuff, paved trails are great, but over time they crack, they heave, and they've got cracks and little joints and bumps and stuff. You just don't want to take a spill back here. So I would definitely recommend a headlamp if you're going to be later in the race, if you think you're going to be out there past dark. So make sure you bring a headlamp for that. Other than that, I mean, I believe everything is on paved trail system, so it shouldn't really be loose gravel or anything like that. I don't think you need to worry about that necessarily. But overall, I think the biggest factor for this year, especially, is going to be the heat. You're going to be out there in the full sun. There's not going to be much protection, but this is, once you get to the full, I mean, the half, 471 feet over 13.1 miles isn't too crazy. But once you get to 1,200 feet, especially these 3 climbs, it's not Ironman Chattanooga crazy, but it's getting pretty challenging. So I think a good pacing strategy, regardless of the heat and the temperatures and everything, I think you're going to want a good pacing strategy when you get to these loops that you've left enough in the tank to get past this third hill, and it's not totally broken you, so you can have a good run into the finish line. Other than that, like I said, hydrate well on the bike, get that nutrition on point, because once you get out there, you're going to have less opportunities as your stomach goes further into the race. It's not going to want to cooperate, not going to want to process foods, so it's going to be harder and harder to get that energy. So make sure you time out the aid stations to be able to withstand that. With that, I don't have any other comments. Really, I just like to get people to at least look at the maps before they go out there and kind of think about the race. Like I said, 3 loops for the full, 2 loops for the half. The major difference for the full is they're adding a little bit of section over here in the park. There's probably over half the course. I don't think there's going to be much coverage as far as trees go, so you're going to be in the full sun. The 70.3 for 2021, you guys start at noon on a Sunday, so that's going to be a little different. So basically, you're going to be warm the entire day. So just make sure you're planning on that and be ready for that. Other than that, I didn't see any other questions. So hopefully this helped you out. Give it a like if you're watching on Facebook. Give it a like if you see it on YouTube and it helped you out. Hit subscribe on there and hit the notification button for other future videos. I want to do stuff on the weather. I want to do it on, hopefully get to talk about transition, spectators, where they should kind of hang out to see the race, weather, all that kind of good stuff. So hopefully this helped you out. Try to hit the highlights for you, especially for the half, the 70.3, and the full this year. A little bit different for 2021. Don't know if they'll continue the full past 2021, so we'll see how that goes. See how the participation goes and how many people go out there and race, and see if it's worth Ironman's time to do a full in the future. The people I've talked to, the athletes I have doing it, they're looking forward to it. They're excited. They've done the 7.3 before. They really like the area. So we'll see how it goes. So with that, put any comments in there. If I missed something, if you didn't like something, you think I'm wrong about something, put it in there. If you're local and you're like, oh no, you got tons of trees or there's tons of lighting and stuff, you don't need headlamps, put in the comments, help me out. Like I said, I'm not doing this race, but I have athletes who've done it in the past. They're doing it this year. I'm making plans for them. I always go over the courses and try to get, what I think, just looking at the maps, looking at the elevation courses, what would help them the best to get this race done. So with that, hopefully your training has treated you well, and we will see you at the finish line, and good luck and have a good race.